Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Benno, and joining me is Sen Dong. Hey, Sen.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so Independence Day Resurgence, or ID42, came out last weekend. Also, The Shallows, a shark feature featuring Blake Lively. Free State of Jones and the Neon Demon all came out, and we were kind of off on some predictions.
I think you were right on for Independence Day Resurgence, right? You said about 40 to 50 million?
Yeah, I said 45 to 50.
Yeah, so you were pretty close.
Yeah, and you were a tad low on that, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. So we will jump right into the weekend box office. And we find that Finding Dory repeated as the number one movie over the weekend. It pulled in 73.2 million over the weekend, experienced only a 45.8% drop off. And so far, its total gross domestic is 286 million.
46% drop off is very leggy for a film that broke a record for the biggest opening, of an animated feature in history.
Yeah, we see that these other big movies, like the superhero movies, experience a high 50-60% drop-offs.
Yeah, and this 46% is very leggy, and it's already one of the top grossing. After 2 weeks, it's already one of the top grossing films in the Pixar library.
It'll probably be the biggest, right?
Yeah, right now, especially by its how leggy it's doing in the second week, it'll probably end up being the top grossing. Yeah, it'll probably end up
I mean,
in the top.
it beat out Toy Story 3 in the opening, and if you follow the trajectory, domestic and foreign, right? I'm sure it's huge, gonna be huge overseas as well. It's
Right.
gonna end up being the biggest movie in Pixar history.
Yeah, right, and it has a chance to be the biggest movie of the year. Which currently
So far, right?
yeah, which so far is Civil War.
And like we said, a return for director Andrew Stanton, who directed John Carter.
Right. I mean, it's always good to go back to a film that before Toy Story 3 was the highest grossing film in Pixar history. The great thing about Finding Dory is the reviews were just as good as the first film. It's like 94% on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Like the film in second place this week.
Right, and that is
Independence Day Resurgence. Opened at number 2 with 41.6 million at a budget of 165 million. So this is actually a very disappointing figure for Fox because, I mean, compared to the first film, I think the first film opened to around 50 million for 3 days. It's disappointing because nowadays, with inflation and everything, it should be a lot higher. And at a budget of 165 million, a 42 million opening is pretty weak.
Yeah, you expect this to open. I mean, they want it to open at least 50 million plus, right?
Yeah.
To at least break even. But we don't know how far. I mean, the drop off is.
I think it's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll see. We'll see. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's going to experience a typical, second weekend drop off in the 50s. Okay, but if it go into the 60s, then they have a real problem.
Yeah, I wonder because next week is Independence Day, right? Next Monday.
Yeah. Yep.
So I wonder if you'll get that Independence Day bump because the reviews are horrible, But for Roland Emmerich, his films have always been not that well reviewed. 34% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's even for Roland Emmerich is not great. I think 2012 was like around 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. So 34% is kind of on the lower end. Word of mouth hasn't been that great. So I'm curious to see if it'll get that holiday bump. It doesn't seem like it. The cinema score was only like a B, right? And B is very average.
The cinema score is B. But here's the thing, though. Even though it has a, like you say, a 4th of July bump, it doesn't pave over the opening figure, the poor opening figure.
Yeah,
You know,
no.
it's gonna drop off huge anyway. But how huge is the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't count Monday, because Monday's a holiday, and if you just count the 3 days, I think this will drop off like in the 60 to 65% range. It might get a bump Monday, but if you were just counting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think it'll get the typical, sci-fi drop off, which is around 65%.
Yeah, and when you think about it, Independence Day Resurgence is a sequel to a movie that's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? You think the people who are interested to see it are really fans of the movie, the people who have seen the first movie,
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You could say that it's going to be front-loaded because of the, people who are aware of the movie are going to go see it, right?
Right.
And then you're going to experience like you say, the typical sci-fi drop-off, action movie drop-off, the second weekend, because those who have interest have seen it.
Yeah, right. And, again, it's one of these things, people are like, well, how much is Will Smith worth? I'm pretty sure that if Will Smith returned, the opening would be a lot higher.
Yeah, but also the budget would be a lot higher.
About 20 million more.
20 million more, but he's gonna take a chunk out of the profits. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on how they negotiate, right?
But if Will Smith was in it, this would probably open. I don't know. It could open in the 70 to 80 million range.
You might be right.
Even Men in Black 3. I mean, everyone thought Men in Black 2 was a stinker. And even Men in Black 3 ended up opening in the 60 million range. So if Will Smith did a sequel to his highest grossing film in his resume, I think it would open probably, twice his current figure, and it would, more than pay for his salary.
That's true, but we'll never know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think they're betting on the overseas market.
Well, right now they are right now they have to. They're probably thinking, hey, Roland Emmerich have made huge hits without stars. So even, they're thinking, hey, maybe Will Smith is expendable. But, I think the difference with Independence Day is that Independence Day made Will Smith. It's the film that jump-started his career, that put him on the map and, made him a megastar. And, it's one of those career-defining films.
Well, that's true, but with someone like Will Smith, you could say that you can argue that it's only a matter of time before he hit it big, and it just so happened that ID4 did it.
Yeah, you're right about that. But when this is his career-defining film, and you don't put him in a sequel, people will feel that void. They're banking on Roland Emmerich, but sometimes stars do matter. When you have stars in their playing their persona, that usually bodes well.
Like you said, Will Smith matters a lot for this movie, at least. Just in hindsight, right? I mean, if they open huge, then you would say Will Smith doesn't matter. But
yeah, right. Again, it's Monday quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. Resurgence did okay. I mean, the budget is huge, 165 million. It opened to around 41, but I don't think, like we said, it's not disastrous that it opened kind of relatively low here. It's just there's always the overseas market. They're betting on the overseas market because it's a special effects heavy movie, and those movies usually do well. I mean, they
overseas,
say, okay, it's just like, okay, Will Smith might not agree to do this movie. Maybe he's too expensive, but we can still make it. Still viable movie. So we'll see.
Yeah, if it was just the US, then 41.6 million is pretty disappointing. It's below even your modest expectations. Way below most of the people's modest expectations. Except mine, of course. Mine was too low.
Well, it goes to show you that people weren't very high on the movie, right? I mean, we weren't going high with the movie. You especially went way low. Yeah. And just this general feeling that, hey, this movie just doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's going to underperform. But so far, the overseas has made nearly 100 million. That's a good figure, and it hasn't opened everywhere yet. So, like you said, it might make up ground overseas, because if you just base it on the domestic figure, it's kind of it's a tank. it's going to have trouble reaching 100 million domestically. But we'll see. At 165 million, it would have to do around 350 to 400 million worldwide just to break even. And and this film being because the first film was kind of a classic, iconic film, it's gonna make a buttloads on home video. Everyone who skipped out on the theatrical release will probably watch it on video.
That's true.
So if this movie makes around 350 worldwide in theaters, they might even make a slight profit on video.
And I think they will.
Yeah, but we're not gonna see Independence Day 3.
Well,
unless it makes unless it makes like 600 million overseas. I don't see it.
Right, just like Warcraft, right? I mean, who cares right here? But it's huge overseas, especially in China.
Yeah.
So they're gonna make a movie for them.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, they might just skip out on the U.S.
Right. Okay, so let's move along to number 3, which is the action comedy Central Intelligence, starring Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart. It pulled in 18.3 million over this weekend. This is its second weekend, and it only experienced a 48% drop off.
Which is a great haul for Kevin Hart film, because most of his films usually drop off like 50-60% during the second weekend. So, this is actually a pretty good haul for him, and I guess it's a normal haul for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh yeah, the math changes because it has Johnson. It's not a Kevin Hart film anymore.
Yeah, right. This is one of the summer's hits. It's a modestly budgeted action comedy. Only 50 million, and after 2 weeks, it's already grossed 70 million, and it's on pace to do at least 100 million. It's gonna make a decent profit for WB.
Yeah, it's just like a typical Dwayne Johnson movie. It opens around that range, and then it's gonna close in. It's actually gonna do pretty well. It's probably gonna make over 100 million, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say typical Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film. I think it's better than the typical Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film.
Okay, but it opens, in the same area as typical Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson films.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, no. Besides his, Fast and Furious movies, and the heavy special effects movie, this is kind of like open, where his.
This is better than his other films.
Yeah, but this one performs better. It has, I guess it holds better.
Yeah, it holds better. We'll probably see sequels.
I'm not sure if they want to do a sequel to this one, but with movies they always talk sequels, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is the kind of film that's kind of made for sequels. Your action comedy, kind of like the Rush Hour films. These films are easier to sequelize than, for instance, Finding Nemo. If they made a sequel to Finding Nemo, they can definitely make a sequel to Central Intelligence.
Yeah, true, but the thing is like Dwayne has a lot of projects on his plate. Kevin Hart has a lot of projects on his plate. I mean, they could do one, but they probably have stuff lined up. So who knows when we'll see one if they decide to do one.
I think they will, because Kevin Hart's not a. Let's put it this way: if he's one of those guys, if there's what sequel did he just do? Like the
Ride Along.
Yeah, like Ride Along. After the first film became successful, they cranked out another one within a year, 2 years max. Yeah, so this one I'm pretty sure by the way it's performing, there's going to be a Central Intelligence too, and The Rock has never been shy from sequels. So
I think that Rock might be busy, but who knows? They could fit someone else in. Could be another classmate.
With action comedies, I don't think they're going to switch these guys. These things work because of them. You throw in another guy, it's not going to work that well.
It wouldn't stop people from trying.
Yeah, and it's a modestly budgeted film, so I don't see how WB can bring everyone back.
Okay, so you're thinking sequels. I say not, but okay, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, sure, The Rock's busy and Kevin Hart's busy, but once you have a hit, it's like, all right, some of the other projects can be, pushed aside, except for maybe, except with the exception of the Fast and Furious 9, I don't see why The Rock wouldn't, or San Andreas 2.
Okay.
I don't see why he couldn't make space for Central Intelligence.
Okay, so you're saying The Rock is not picky in his films.
No,
Okay.
and neither is Kevin Hart.
All right. I can understand Kevin Hart. Okay, but okay. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it, and we'll look forward to Central Intelligence 2, maybe.
Right. Okay, let's move on to number 4. One of actually the only hit, a surprise hit of the weekend. The Shallows is one of those shock films with Blake Lively in bikini, as they say in the media. It did 16.7 million over the weekend at a budget of 17 million, so it's gonna make a huge profit for Sony. And both of us were pretty low on it, right? Our expectations were like 5 million to 10.
Yeah, you said 5 to 10. I said 5.
Yeah, right. I think it performed way better than what us and everyone in the industry predicted.
I guess people are into Blake Lively, sharks, and bikinis.
Yeah, and summer, the beach.
And Summer the Beach. And when you look at the promos, the previews, or the trailers, not an interesting movie in it by itself. Yeah, there's a shark, but probably seen better. More exciting shark attack movies.
Yeah.
But
Well, the reviews are pretty good though. I mean, 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, and usually with these kind of films, they're not that well reviewed, but hey, this one is actually decently well reviewed.
Well, we say that it's a hit because it only cost 17 million and it opened
Yeah.
to about that, right?
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's just a modest success. It's not like a huge a movie.
Yeah, it's not, it's not like Finding Dory. But with a lot of these things, you have to look at, the budget to say whether or not it's a hit. And it's one of those films that I think now that it's a hit and it's been, it's being promoted as a hit, it draws interest in the coming weeks and on video. So yeah, like you said, modest hit, but nonetheless a hit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's just typical, I guess, genre film numbers.
Sure.
Yeah. It did, as a success because of the budget. It opened to around that much, and then it'll linger in theaters somewhat, and then people will forget about The Shallows, or other stuff like that. Disposable horror movie. It is a horror movie with sharks.
Well, I'm not sure. I think this is a little bit better than that because most genre films are poorly reviewed. This one is actually well reviewed and maybe a reason why this surprising business.
All right, we'll see how it will do the second week.
Yeah, right. Let's move on to number 5. Another disappointing release over the weekend. Free State of Jones, a Civil War movie starring Matthew McConaughey.
Well, it takes place around that time, I think.
Okay, this is a dud mainly because with his budget is it cost 50 million to make, and this looks like one of those indie films that should cost a lot less. Especially by STX. STX has made modestly budgeted films.
Yeah, I think STX buy these movies. I don't think they make movies.
Yeah, I think their exposure from what I read was only 10 million. Since their exposure is only 10 million, 7.8 million opening is not bad. They'll be okay. It's just the people who invested the other 40 million will not be okay.
Right. I thought, well, the movie kind of opened to where I said 8 million.
Yeah, you're right. See, you're right on with this, and you actually did very, very well last weekend. You were right on this figure. You were pretty much right on Independence Day. The Shallows, you're off, but pretty much everyone else is off.
Yeah. Well, some days it feels like I know what I'm doing, So yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, but the Free to Save Jones. I guess like you said, the exposure is only 10 million. That's why they feel comfortable releasing this movie because like us, our figures are pretty low, and we don't think this is kind of a mass appeal movie.
Yeah.
It only has a release because it has Matthew McConaughey in it. Otherwise, it doesn't look like a movie that people would want to go and watch in theaters.
Yeah, during the summer. It's good counter programming, but still not the kind of film that draws a mainstream audience.
here's the thing though. The movie is directed by Gary Ross, the guy who did Pleasantville, Seabiscuit, Hunger Games. He comes to you with a movie and say, hey, I want to direct this. I'm saying, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, why not, right?
That's why he got a $50 million budget. But again, here's the thing though. Because STX's exposure is only 10 million, they're going to make money on this. To STX, it's a decent sized hit. It's just that to the investors who pour in 40 million are going to lose money on this.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, well, because they carve out the territories. They sell it to, the U.S. here. They sell the rights to Germany. Sell the rights to China.
That's true. That's true.
They have these piecemeal. They can sell off to the rights to different people, and they can probably make their thing, their cost that way. And then there's still, deals with streaming sites that they could do to recoup that money.
But I don't think this will do well. This is not the kind of movie that does well overseas, though.
Well, no, but still.
Yeah, so I think the investors will lose money, but STX, the distributor, will make money.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, Free State Jones is kind of this weird movie that exists because of the people involved. And
it's kind of in a weird state where it'll make money for the distributor but lose money for the investors. Or maybe Gary Voss might be like, hey, I owe you guys one. You guys can, I'll give you a bigger share of the profits next time.
Yeah, I don't think his agent will allow that. Yeah, well, Free State Jones is one of those movies that's kind of like a net neutral, I guess. It's not going to make money, it's not going to lose a lot of money, but, it's just, at best, a waste of everyone's time.
You'll lose money. You'll lose money, just not for the distributor, but for the investors.
Okay. So I guess we'll move on from Free State Jones just like everyone else did to number 6. The Conjuring 2, it pulled in 7.7 million over the weekend. And it's still holding on strong, only a 48% drop off. And so far it made 86 million domestic.
At a budget of 40 million, it looks like it'll get to 100 million, so not as big as the first ones, but still very good.
Yeah, still profitable movie. I think we're going to see more Conjurings because how well received it is. Mm-hmm. And I think future Conjurings will probably cost around the 40 million range. I don't think they're going to up the budget anymore.
Right.
Because I think this is kind of like the sweet spot right now. They all got, there's an audience for this movie, at least this series. And that's how much they're gonna greenlit the next movie,
Yeah, especially the budget is 40 million worldwide. The worldwide figure is 243 million. So it's a huge profit for Warner Brothers. The interesting thing about The Conjuring is it's really Ghostbusters, except more grounded. The two main characters played by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, all kind of like Ghostbusters. But this is more grounded in reality. Well, as realistic as you can get with ghosts. So they kind of took that. It's kind of like if Chris Nolan were to reboot Ghostbusters, The Conjuring would be it.
I think that movie, I think people would pay to see what Chris Nolan would do with the Ghostbuster reboot instead of the what we will get.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You'll probably get The Conjuring.
Okay, maybe.
A more grounded, more realistic, version of something that's will be fantastical and over the top. But anyway, we're getting the Ghostbusters soon.
And okay, number 7 is Now You See Me Too. This thriller, action thriller, with magic, pulled in about 5.6 million over the weekend. Experienced a nearly 40% drop off from its previous weekend. So far, only made 52 million. So not doing well.
Yeah, a disappointing figure domestically. Worldwide is at 160 million. The budget was the budget 100 million or 75 million?
I think it's around 70 80 million kind of thing like
70,
that.
Okay, so depending on how much more it does overseas, it'll probably break even. Actually, it's already near break even, but considering that the first film made 300 or 350 million worldwide, it's very disappointing. They probably won't lose money, and they might make some money on video, but I don't think we'll see 3.
Well, yeah, the jury is still out on the overseas market. I mean, because it hasn't opened in some of the bigger territories yet. So there's still ways to go for this movie. I mean, we
That's true.
we couldn't say that's a dud yet, right?
Yeah, that's true. If it does another 100 million overseas, hey, they might do a third one.
I mean, this is a concept movie that I guess could work well. I mean, it depends on how well you like the characters, because it's another thriller heist or whatever, using
Yeah.
magic to do whatever, and they could serialize this really. It just depends on how I guess people's appetite for these watching people use magic to do the same thing, pulling bigger and bigger stuff.
Yeah. But especially domestically, it's following that trend of disappointing sequels this summer. This summer is just really bad for sequels.
Well, it is, but you have to look at the sequels. You have to look at the movies. Like some movies, you say, okay, yeah, that movie did well, but do I want to see another one?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Or like Now You See Me Too. Now You See Me, right? It's a movie that kind of came out of nowhere, became a surprise hit. That then people made another one because, hey, why not? And that's why I say, okay, or do people want to watch kind of similar things, and with people that not
usually they
draw
do.
you in.
Usually they do. This summer definitely gave sequels a bad name. I think it definitely makes studios a bit more hesitant about cranking out sequels.
Well, the sequels are not the problem, but right, it's really the storyline. Do people want? Take for example Civil War. Sequel to Captain America.
Yeah.
Right? That did extremely well. Finding Dory did extremely well.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like what kind of movies are there? It's just the concept of, do people want to see more of the stuff? It's just like they're making the sequels really is just because the first one made the first one made money.
Yeah, but in the past, they crank these things out and they make money. But so far this year, not only do they not make money, they lose money.
But that's what we typically see of sequels, though.
No, well, I mean the typical sequel to big movies, usually the second sequel does better. But even if it does the typical historic figure, like sequels drop by 20-30%. But this summer we're seeing sequels dropping off by like 50, 60, even 70%. Which is on average pretty alarming. You have films like Alice in Wonderland that does only like 40% of the original, or just really low, or even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Now You See Me Too. So these drop-offs have been way more than what your typical sequel drops off of. Yeah, so this summer has been pretty bad, with the rare exception of like Finding Dory or Civil War.
But then again, you have to say that it is because of Finding Dory and Civil War that sequels are not doing well.
Because of those
you can make the argument that like the summer. I mean it's getting more crowded, right? I mean, with these huge movies taking up most of the money. So that's why you don't see the cash being spread out to other movies.
So you're saying Captain America and Finding Dory are sucking up all the cash?
Yeah, I'm saying these big movies, not just Finding Dory, not just Captain America. It's just like when you open so close to these big movies, event movies, people are gonna choose that instead of the other ones.
Right. Or it could just be. Yeah, I wonder. It could just be that this summer there are too many sequels or too many effects-heavy sequels. Maybe like we said in previous weeks, maybe people are just tired of the mass mayhem. I mean, like Independence Day. Hey, we see that buildings and mass destruction in everything, in every action movie. We see it in X-Men Apocalypse. We see it in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We see it in Warcraft. We see it in Captain America. We see it in Batman vs Superman. It seems like maybe people are just tired of that, and they want to see other ways that people was putting money into movies, like maybe Finding Dory. Hey, no explosions.
That too, but then again, you have to look at what the real problem is, right? It's the movie's budget. You can't have like 300 million plus movies squeezed in.
Well, I don't think the budgets are the problem, because when your first film makes like 300 or 400 million, obviously you're gonna spend. It makes sense to pull in 100 million or even 200 million, in a sequel. Because you think, hey, even if the sequel drops off by 30%, it still makes sense. I don't think the budget's a problem, but it might just be like, like we said previously, people were tired of these. People using special effects in the same way. It almost seems like they went to IOM and IOM just put in a slight different algorithmic change to create another, mass destruction sequence for them. And people are like, well, I've seen this 6 or 7 times already. I need to see you guys do something else with special effects.
Yeah. I think that's one of the elements. I feel that all these big movies clumping together is another.
Yeah, that's what we show.
It's all of these things. Yeah, all these factors.
Yeah, there are just too many of these things every week.
All right, now where are we? We're at number 8, right?
We're only at
X-Men
number 8?
Apocalypse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we're at X-Men Apocalypse, number 8. Pulled in about 2.5 million over the weekend. Let's see. So far, it only made 151 million domestic. And
at a budget of 178 million.
Yes, and overseas it did way better. 372 for a worldwide take of 523 million.
Yeah, the media has been portraying this as solid, which it is, when you look at, but when you compare it to the previous film, it is slightly disappointing, because X-Men Days of Futures Past did 230 million domestically, and around 700 something worldwide. So it is slightly disappointing, but at least it didn't completely outright, tank like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Now You See Me Too. Well, not tank, but way performing way under its predecessors. Or the worst one, Alice Through the Looking Glass.
That's true. It's not a bomb. It's not going to lose money. It's going to make money, right? But but X-Men is Fox really big tentpole, you could say. In the superhero universe. I mean, in their superhero movie slate. Right. And their own breakout, like individual characters are the Wolverine and Deadpool, and they haven't tested out the other, characters yet. And it's worrying to see that their Avengers movie underperform.
Yeah.
Especially with one of the biggest baddest villains in the X-Men universe.
Right.
It's kind of like, you pull out all the stops and you're met with kind of lowish number.
Right. But sometimes you have to take a step back and if you look at the worldwide figure, X-Men Apocalypse, even right now, and it continues to make money. Even right now at 524 million worldwide, it's the 3rd highest grossing X-Men film, even counting Deadpool. So Deadpool is number 1, X-Men Days of Future Past is number 2, and number 3 is Apocalypse. So if you take a step back, I guess the word solid is probably the right word.
Well, yeah, solid, but then again, you kind of miss out on the mark, really. I mean,
you do, because especially when the last film did nearly 750 million, and you're 200 million off is kind of disappointing. But they're still gonna make money. It could justify more X-Men films, but they're probably going to be more cautious, and they'll probably lower the budget. Especially seeing how Deadpool did, with only 50 million.
Yeah, like I said, they have to go smaller. I mean, it costs so much because, maybe there's like too many X-Men, So they would probably best go with these individual smaller team-ups first, and then come together with a bigger story, like what Marvel's doing. I mean, I'm not saying that Marvel is the only way, with all these things. But
Yeah, in that respect. But in
mhm.
terms of the budget, Marvel's been their films cost a lot of money.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
they're successful. That's
yeah,
the
they're successful.
the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, right. I can see them making more X-Men by lowering their budget because if Apocalypse only costs 100 million, hey, we wouldn't be saying. Well, we will probably still say it's disappointing considering how well the
Mm-hmm.
previous film did. But if it costs 100 million, it's hugely profitable, and Fox won't flinch on making another X-Men film. But I think
Right.
now, if they make another one, they'll, like you said, they'll probably make it with a lower budget.
Right, and I think this is really an opportunity to kind of look at what they're doing, right? Smaller movies, smaller budget movies, different stories. Not another guy trying to take over the world. I mean,
Yeah,
it might be a good thing, really.
yeah,
For Fox to kind of give them, a chance to kind of rejigger things.
yeah, right.
Mm.
And it's one of those things that I feel like sets Civil War apart too. Even though, like when you watch Civil War, there's not that much mass mayhem, but what there is a lot of is these individual Marvel characters fighting against each other. It's heavy in hand-to-hand combat rather than
Mm.
huge buildings being destroyed. When you compare Captain America, well, to Batman versus Superman, which essentially has the same storyline. Batman versus Superman was more mass mayhem, and Captain America was more superhero versus superhero. A lot of hand-to-hand combat rather than just buildings being destroyed.
Yeah, and I think with the Batman and Superman series going forward, I think they're going to try to focus the story on like human casualties, um, the cost of them being heroes, like the world saviors, are they really
Uh,
saviors? I think they're
uh,
going to focus on, or they, uh,
no, I think they're gonna go beyond that. They already did two films on that, and if they did another one more, even with Civil War, people are probably kind of like, okay, we get it. They're human casualties. Don't get, I think.
okay, just throwing out there. We'll see where they take this.
All right, let's move on to number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows. Speaking of sequels that underperform, this is one of those that way underperformed. Did 2.4 million over the weekend. After 4 weeks, it's made 77 million. It looks like it won't do too much more at a budget of 135 million. It'll probably top off at around 85 million, which is less than half of what the first film did. Worldwide, worldwide is surprising. I'm not sure how wide it's open. I'm not sure if it's open in China yet. I don't think so.
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't have the figure tallied yet.
yeah, so worldwide is only at 154 million, which is also very disappointing considering I think the first film did around 500 million worldwide. So at this current figure, it's going to lose a lot of money. So we'll see how well it does in China.
Yeah, I think the first reboot is really kind of kind of the outlier of this
Yeah.
Turtle franchise. Really, before it wasn't. Yeah, it has its cult following, right?
Mhm.
But it's never kind of a
I
really
think it has
wide.
more. It has more than a cult following.
Yeah, it's okay, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like we said in the previous podcast. I mean, it's probably doesn't have enough to justify the huge budget.
Well, this is like after the fact though, because the first film did so well.
That's true, right? But if you look at it's the other movies, the live action ones with the guys in the suit,
Yeah.
those did modestly, okay, but not like huge, right?
I don't know. At this time, like the first one did around 80 million, or like 70 to 80 million. So at the time, that's pretty mainstream. At this time, that's a pretty solid hit. It's not like it did like 40 million. I'm surprised by even the animated ones that came out did like 40, 50 million. So, there's a decent following. It's just for some reason, the fans just didn't turn out for this one.
Well, and that's why we say that all these movies are kind of blending together because it features the same elements. Like I said, you substitute turtles for superheroes. This is a superhero movie, with all this stuff blowing up, people taking over the world again.
Yeah.
Car chases, except with turtles. So
that's I think that's it. There's just too many of these kinds of films in in the span of just a few months.
And like you say, ILM is probably happy with the business because they can just change a little bit, and hey, they can crank out another movies for the studios.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you want another, building exploding into a million pieces? Here, let's just change the color, a little bit of the color here, and they're probably taking the same models and just adjusting them slightly.
Oh yeah, that red flames, you can use the red flame, change it to blue. Hey, there it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So, for special effects companies, they're probably really happy. But
Right.
for audiences, they're probably like, man, another exploding building? Haven't I seen this like at least, 20 times already this summer?
Right. Okay, so rounding out the top 10 is Alice Through the Looking Glass, another...
I wouldn't say another, I would say the most disappointing. Yeah, the most disappointing of the sequels.
It pulled in about 2.1 million over the weekend. Domestic take is 5 million. The worldwide figures 249 on a budget of 170.
At a budget of 170, you usually, to break even theatrically, the worldwide figure needs to be, at least around 350 to 400 million, and it doesn't look like it'll get there. But more importantly, the first film did nearly $1 billion, right?
Yes, it did.
Worldwide? Yeah, so,
yes.
I mean, compared to that, geez, and with this budget, it's, it's a dud so far.
Yeah, it is a dud, but you normally you see movies underperform here and do well overseas. But even overseas, it's not that impressive.
Yeah,
numbers.
Right, which just goes to show maybe the first film was riding high off of the 3D craze, and and Johnny Depp was still big from the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Now that his career is turning the corner, and 3D is no longer the thing. You're seeing a film underperforming in mass proportions.
Oh, right. Well, I really couldn't explain this movie other than say maybe it is the 3D fad that, the first movie rode on to 1 billion. And, now that it's over, because it's this effects heavy movie, right?
Yeah. Never underestimates Tim Burton. The first film does have a certain unique look to it, and a unique looking world. But the second film doesn't have Tim Burton. I'm sure if Tim Burton did it, it would have a more unique look and it would have more of a draw. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, because they already did the first film. I mean, they could just reuse the stuff, the look and feel of the first movie, since it's already set in stone, right? And I don't think Tim Burton is necessary, since he already laid out the stuff for the movie, for the series.
It could be true, but I'm sure if Tim Burton did it, he would have, Tim Burton is one of those auteurs, and I'm sure if he were to do this one, he would just, like most auteurs, let's throw everything from the first film out the window and, create something new that, that would make them excited to work on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's the Tim Burton effect that you say is why the second movie didn't work out.
Well, I would take it more as the 3D craze has died down, and Johnny Depp's no longer as big as he used to be, and in a smaller extent, Tim Burton.
Okay, all right. Okay, so a movie of interest is number 11, Warcraft.
Right.
It pulled in 2.1 million, experienced another highest drop off with 70%. Mm-hmm. And so far, it only pulled in 44 million on the domestic market. Mm-hmm. And worldwide, let's check on the worldwide take, is 412.
The budget of 160 million. So on a worldwide level, they'll probably make a decent profit on a worldwide level.
Well, it's really only big in China.
Yeah, I think just on China alone. The only problem with China is China doesn't have much of a ancillary market. Like the DVD and Blu-ray market isn't as big as the U.S. So a lot of the, what they make. I think I read one article saying that most of a majority of the money that they make in films in China, 80 to 90% of it is theatrical. Home video accounts for like less than 10%, compared to the U.S. where the home video market is bigger than the theatrical market. It's like I think it's like 150% more or 200%. It's like I remember reading something like the worldwide theatrical market is like was it 20 billion? And then the home video market is like 30 billion in the U.S. For U.S. films, I think, worldwide. So, but in China, there's not much of a home video market. That kind of limits Warcraft's profitability.
Yeah, that's true too. But we say that the sequel is pretty much a sure thing. But is it really?
Yeah, I'm not sure now. Mainly because of such a huge budget. And mainly because it did so poorly in the U.S.
Not just the U.S. It's just like elsewhere. You look at
that's true. It's
elsewhere. It's not that good.
Well, it's not too bad. I mean, considering in China it made 200 million in China, so it still did nearly 170 elsewhere, which isn't bad. The place where it underperformed the most is the U.S. And with the U.S., you can count on ancillary markets like home video. In China, you can't count on that. So because it's such a big hit in China, you can't count on home video. That kind of limits how much money they're gonna make.
That's true. But like I said, it's not a guarantee that the sequel would do better than the first movie, and I expect the sequel to actually drop, here and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's not a well-reviewed film, but for some reason it did. Well, not for some reason. We know the reason why it did so well in China. Because it's state-owned.
If the roles were reversed, like if it did 200 million in the U.S. and 43 million in China, they would greenlight a sequel like by now. By now we will be hearing, Warcraft 2 has been greenlit, but because it's reversed, it's a complete dud here, but a huge hit in China. I'm not so sure. But now, like you said, if they lower the budget to, 100 million, that may justify a sequel just for China.
Well, there's the thing. Can they lower the budget? Because like it's really all special effects.
Yeah, and according to what the reviewer said, it's pretty bad special effects. So actually, that kind of justifies lowering the budget to 100 million. People probably couldn't tell.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, it's not like Lord of the Rings where you can just go to New Zealand and just film the scenery there, right? They have to create this, special effects world.
Maybe if they lower the budget to 100 million, they will go to New Zealand.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, something to keep an eye on, I think. Yeah.
That's a pretty good possibility, actually. Lowering the budget to 100 million, and it would justify making it just for China and the other overseas market.
All right. Well, we'll see if they have Warcraft 2 in the works.
Yeah, right. If they make it, it's not going to be at 160 million. Wait, there's another the Neon Demon that opened last weekend.
Yeah. Opened at 15. It only pulled in 606K.
Yeah, 606K.
So way below our projection of 5 million. We thought it would break at least 1 million. Because it was directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Elle Fanning and others, Christina Hendricks, Gina Malone. Yeah, it even has Keanu Reeves.
Right.
Who's probably a producer. I don't know. Why he's in this movie. It opened in 783 theaters and not good.
Yeah, not good. A per screen average of just $775. It's a third, whichever way you slice it.
Right. So they pretty much had an opening party and had the people who work on the movie to watch it, and I guess that's how we arrive at this number.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to this coming week's films.
Okay, the new openings. We have 3, right?
Yeah.
We have the Steven Spielberg, fantasy movie, the BFG.
Based on a book.
Yes, based on a book, and the Legend of Tarzan, starring Alexander Skarsgård, Sam Jackson, Margot Robbie, Christoph Waltz, and then there is the Purge 3, or the Purge Election Year.
Let's start off with Steven Spielberg.
Okay, Steven Spielberg's the BFG. Like you say, based on a book, it has a giant.
It has a giant, and then it has a giant's giant.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what else is there to tell you. You can probably explain it.
Yeah, it's about giants who eat humans, except for this, the BFG. What does it stand for again? Big Friendly Giant?
Yes.
Who befriends a human. Well, I guess they're human too. Who befriends a tiny, a normal human. And he doesn't eat humans. He's like he's the only one or one of the few. And they created a friendship. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. I guess he's returning to making family films, like E.T. And the reviews so far are decent, 70% on the tomato meter, on Rotten Tomatoes, with 54 reviews so far. What do you think? I think it looks like a, family-friendly Steven Spielberg. Doesn't look like it's going to be one of his greats, but looks like a solid family film.
It's a solid family film, but will family go out to watch it? Especially with Finding Dory in theaters.
Yeah, especially with Finding Dory doing so well and holding up so well.
And the reason why I didn't say a lot about it or introduce it, it doesn't look that good to me. A child befriending a giant, and I guess they went off to fight other giants, and the most worrying thing is that it's British.
It's British?
It's British.
Everyone speaks with a British accent?
It has British sensibilities.
Oh, okay.
There's also that too. So I kind of compared this kind of like Hook. That.
I don't know. I think it looks a lot better than Hook, though.
Well, that was way before, but I'm just saying it has the same feel to me with the Peter Pan. Yeah, it has the same kind of feel as the Peter Pan movies.
I don't know. I think it looks a lot better than those. Well, I think it at least looks interesting, and it at least, in terms of look, is unique from the other films in the top 10 at the box office. Sure, it's special effects, but it's not like buildings blowing up.
True, but it is also extremely tame.
Yeah, it's also it is tame. It is tame.
And not in a good way. Tame. It's like nothing is going on. Tame.
Yeah, it does look tame, but I think at the same time it does offer us something that's different for the market. Because if you look at those films, it's like like you said, most of them look the same because of the mass mayhem effect. And BFG, it takes place in a fantasy world. It's not about, unlike Warcraft, it's not about well, it is one giant versus another, but it's not heavy in like warfare and mayhem. I think the only problem is Finding Dory is doing so well and holding up so well that families looking for entertainment, would they choose between Finding Dory or the BFG? They might still choose Finding Dory. I could see, hey, Steven Spielberg has been consistent and he's a good selling point, and it's a film that looks different from every other film in the top 10. So,
right, but the main decision maker, right, the kids, would they choose Finding Dory or the BFG? We're not talking parents here. It doesn't matter if it looks good. Between fish and giant, which would they choose?
It's not like it's a giant dog.
Yeah, that's right. And
if it's a giant dog, they might choose it over Finding Dory. But it's a giant old man.
Right, it's not the BFD, right? Like you said.
Right. It's hard to say. I'm thinking 35 million. Well, hey, it is the 4th of July weekend. Finding Dory will probably drop off at just 30% next week because the word of mouth has been so good. Dropping off 30% would probably mean Finding Dory will still make another 50 million, or somewhere around there next weekend. that's a big chunk of the family audience. So I'm thinking maybe 35 million.
So we're going by 4 days, right? Including
Monday? Oh.
Yeah.
Including Monday, I could see this doing 40. You see, my figure's way off, because if I'm thinking it can do 35 in 3 days, it might do 45 in 4 days. I'll go with 45 for 4 days, 35 for 3 days.
Okay. So I'm just going lower than yours because, like I said, I just don't feel this movie. Choice between Finding Dory and BFG, they're gonna choose, the movie about fish. 25 for 3 days, 35 for 4 days for the BFG.
Okay. Wait, what's that red dog?
Clifford?
Yeah, Clifford. I'm surprised they haven't made a movie out of Clifford yet.
It will happen. But I don't think Steven Spielberg's name would carry much weight for this movie at all. I mean, well, it's gonna help a little bit.
He's been consistent.
But here's the thing. This movie is also released by Disney, so who knows?
Yeah, and I'm sure the trailer for this I've been playing in probably Finding Nemo, probably the Civil War, probably during the Jungle Book. So that could be a big thing. That's a good point. Everyone who's seen those films have probably seen the trailer for this.
I'm gonna still stick by my figure of 25 3 days, 35 4 days.
Okay.
Not into this movie at all. Okay, so how about we move on to The Legend of Tarzan, which cost $180 million to make.
Yeah, the only problem with The Legend of Tarzan is they've already made this movie. It's called The Jungle Book, and The Jungle Book looks a lot better. I mean, don't you get that feeling with all these CGI animals in the jungle?
Yeah, it is. I mean, these stories, again, kind of blend together. Except this one, features an adult shirtless Alexander Skarsgård, so it targeted an older audience.
Yeah.
It has the romance with Margot Robbie,
and it also has the eye patch guy.
Sure, Sam Jackson. But again, I mean, it's the Tarzan that interesting, really. I mean, because we have a couple Tarzans already with the Disney animated one, right?
And the Disney animated one was a huge hit. It made, It made 170 million back in those days. It's like, it's a classic.
It is, but the thing, do we need another Tarzan movie?
I could see why they want to make it. With the advance in digital technology, I could totally see why they want to make it. Because back then when they did it in animated form, that's the best they could do with the technology they have back then. But I could see a very practical, very good reason to make this in live action terms. The only problem is they already did it with the Jungle Book. When I saw this trailer, the trailer for The Legend of Tarzan, after seeing the trailer for Jungle Book, I'm like, oh, that's too bad because, the Jungle Book is basically the same movie except it looks so much better. If the Jungle Book wasn't released before this, I would be curious to see it. But now, after seeing the Jungle Book, it seems a little repetitive and redundant.
Okay, what is your figure? What do you think how it will perform?
It'll bomb.
I'm sensing that too.
I'm thinking like max 15 million.
4 days, 3 days?
I'll go with 4 days. 15 million 4 days.
15 million 4 days?
I think it'll do a little better. Maybe 18 million 4 days.
18 million 4 days. Okay.
But then here's the thing though. Finding Dory will probably do 50 million. If I'm going with 45 million for BFG for 4 days, I'm not sure if. But then in previous weeks, we've seen films, 3 or 4 films making, more than 20 million. So, alright, 4th of July, big holiday, lot of huge family market. Alright, I'll go 18 million 4 days.
Okay, so I'm going to go a tad higher. I'm gonna go somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 million for 4 days. It's another movie, with a shirtless guy with jungle animals. People already seen that.
And the Jungle Book, it wasn't like the Jungle Book was a bad film. It was very well reviewed. It did really well. One of the top grossing films of the year. Legend of Tarzan just doesn't look nearly as good.
It doesn't look nearly as good, and it doesn't have talking animals, and it doesn't have singing animals. Hey.
Right. because unlike Batman versus Superman, people were like, hey, that wasn't that good. And then they saw Civil War, which was better. But in this case, it's the reverse. They saw the Jungle Book, which was really good, and Legend of Tarzan just doesn't look nearly as good.
Okay, so we're not high on Tarzan.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna bear out over the holiday weekend, 4th of July, that it's gonna bomb.
Yeah, it's gonna be another big budget bomb.
Yep, huge bomb potential, especially when it costs 180 million.
Yeah, that's the thing. It seems like almost every special effects movie nowadays costs nearly 200 million.
Okay, The Purge 3, or The Purge Election Year. The third movie in the Purge series, I guess a successful series, that's why we're seeing a third film.
I'm surprised at the second film, The Purge 2. I think it opened at, 35 million?
No, well, the first Purge movie opened to 34. The second movie opened to about 30 million, right? But the second movie grossed more than the first film domestic.
Wait, are you sure about that? Let me see.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard. The Purge
Okay,
Anarchy,
you're right.
71 million. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. Wow. So the second Purge movie actually had legs. It kind of bucked the trend of these horror thrillers. If we're doing 4 days, especially being, election year, it's so topical. This could do, geez, can the market have 340 million openings in one weekend?
Well, we're thinking that Tarzan will bomb. And
That's
the BFG
true.
will underperform.
Well, I'm thinking the BFG will do like 45 in 4 days now.
And that's where you're wrong.
That's true. And the great thing about the Purge also election year is, well, I guess you have the Shadows. That's another thriller slash horror in the market. This will be the second one. But it's like you said, the second film actually had legs, surprisingly.
Yes, and it's such a hit that remember a couple of months ago there's this comedy that kind of spoofs the Purge.
Right. And surprisingly, even the reviews, the reviews for the second Purge were better than the first. 56% compared to 37% for the first film. We'll see how this one is, but I mean the trailer looks pretty interesting.
Well, it kind of follows that populist movement where people, it is an election year, right, with the presidential race going on, and this is about beating the crap out of candidates.
Right, and it does follow there's the Hillary character and there's the Donald Trump character.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? I mean, so and this is an R-rated kind of movie where I guess people could watch politicians get beat up.
Yeah, which could be what people want to see, especially since in general people don't like the two candidates that we have. Like the general consensus is that we're choosing the better of two evils. People in general probably want to see both of them beat up.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So I see this could have a similar opening to the other two movies.
Yeah.
About the 30 million range. I think could be higher since it's 4 days, but I see around 30.
Yeah, same here. Around 4 days, probably 40 million. Although I can see people wanting to see the Donald Trump person get punched more than Hillary.
Yeah, I don't think it could do 40 million, but who knows? I mean, because I think people will go see Finding Dory. That's the movie to beat because families are going to go to see because it is a family film. People love the first movie.
Well, and it's getting great word of mouth.
Yeah, great word of mouth, and I see another lowest drop off. Because it's a movie that everyone can see together
during the holidays.
For the holidays, when they get together, barbecue or whatever, Tarzan, they've seen better movie in the Jungle Book, right? BFG, even though it has Spielberg, I just don't.
You're not feeling it.
Yeah, I don't see what the big deal about this movie is. Like if nothing is involved, I can see it. Yeah, but it has all these competition, And
Finding Dory, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the Spielberg name carries much weight in this one.
That's where you're wrong. I think Steven Spielberg's name carries a lot of weight. Whatever he puts out.
Warhorse. Warhorse.
See, that's a surprise. That's a surprising thing. The Warhorse, end up grossing 80 million in the U.S. When I first saw it, I'm like, max 40 million, but it ended up making 80 million. Even his Munich ended up making 50 million, which I was surprised by too.
Yeah, but I just don't see this one doing that well. I have the same sort of legs as the other ones.
I can see this doing well.
All right, come back next week. We'll find out. I guess the movie in contention is the Spielberg movie, the BFG. So we're pretty much in agreement with others.
Yeah, right. We'll see next week.
All right. I guess that's it for this week's podcast. Come back next week and see how the BFG will do.
And see how hard the Legend of Tarzan will tank.
All right. Thanks for listening.
All right. See you guys next week.